So how do we? Every day, millions wake up and tell themselves they're too old to grow stronger, that their best years are behind them. That muscle loss is inevitable. But neuroscience and nutrition science say otherwise. There is one food, one nutrient powerhouse hiding in plain sight. It's not exotic. It doesn't come in a shiny package. It doesn't need to be injected, powdered, or blended with 15 other ingredients. It's a humble daily food, rich in leucine, packed with complete amino acids, and deeply supported by neuroscience for its ability to reignite muscle protein synthesis. Whether you're 25 or 65, the science is clear: muscles can be rebuilt faster, smarter, safer. But the secret isn't lifting heavier or training longer. It's giving your body the raw materials it needs at the right time. This food doesn't just feed your body. It talks to your brain. It tells your hypothalamus growth is possible. It tells your nervous system, how do we? Recovery is underway. It tells your muscleist, you are not done. When you eat with intention, you activate what neuroscientists call nutritional signaling pathways, biochemical messages that fire in your gut, bloodstream, and brain. It's like a light switch recovery on, degeneration OFF. But it takes more than knowledge. It takes love for your body, discipline for your future, and consistency that outlasts motivation. So tomorrow morning, don't just eat to eat. Eat to build. Eat to heal. Eat with the understanding that this one food, this one decision could make the difference between breakdown and breakthrough, because every bite is a signal. Every meal is a message. Every day is a chance to grow stronger. No matter your age, you are not finished. Your body is not finished. Your best days are not behind you. They'll one rep, one recovery, one meal at a time. Neuroplasticity is the brain's remarkable ability to adapt, rewire, and grow in response to experience. And it's increasingly evident that this process is deeply influenced by what we consume on a daily basis. Nutrients serve not only as fuel, but also as critical messengers and building blocks that enable synaptic communication, neuronal regeneration, and cognitive resilience. Omega-3 fatty acids, how do we? For example, are essential for maintaining the integrity of cell membranes in the brain, supporting neurotransmitter function, and reducing inflammation that can impair neuroplasticity. Amino acids derived from protein-rich foods act as precursors to dopamine, serotonin, and acetylcholine, chemicals responsible for motivation, learning, and focus. Certain micronutrients like magnesium, B vitamins, zinc, and choline are involved in the enzymatic processes that underlie memory formation, emotional regulation, and long-term potentiation, the cellular mechanism for learning. Antioxidant-rich foods help combat oxidative stress, which otherwise damages brain cells and impedes ability to reorganize itself in response to challenges or injuries. A lack of proper nutrition can cause the brain to become metabolically sluggish, reducing the efficiency with which it forms new connections or prunes old ones. Conversely, a nutrient-rich diet signals the body and brain that conditions are optimal for growth, which can enhance neurogenesis, the birth of new neurons, and accelerate adaptation to both physical and psychological stressors. Timing also matters. Consuming specific nutrients during learning after intense cognitive effort or post-exercise can further amplify the effects of neuroplasticity by leveraging periods of heightened brain receptivity. Protein timing affects neuromuscular recovery by influencing the intricate coordination between the brain and body during periods of physical exertion, rest, and repair. When you consume protein, especially after resistance training or strenuous activity, you supply the body with essential amino acids at a critical moment when the muscle fibers are most receptive to repair and hypertrophy. These amino acids, particularly leucine, not only stimulate muscle protein synthesis, but also interact with key signaling pathways such as the mTOR pathway, which governs cell growth, regeneration, and recovery. But what often goes unnoticed is that the nervous system is equally impacted. The central nervous system undergoes microfatigue from intense neural signaling during exercise, especially if the motor neurons are firing rapidly or repetitively to stabilize and contract muscle fibers. Proper protein timing ensures that neurotransmitter precursors like tyrosine and tryptophan are available to restore the brain's chemical balance, replenishing dopamine and serotonin levels that get depleted through prolonged exertion. This biochemical restoration enhances the neural recovery process, helping recalibrate the brain's readiness for future coordination, balance, and force output. Moreover, hormones like insulin and IGF-1, which are influenced by protein and carbohydrate co-ingestion, play a regulatory role in both muscle and brain plasticity, affecting how effectively recovery is encoded into the neuromuscular system. If protein is delayed too long post-exercise, the window of enhanced nutrient sensitivity begins to close, and the efficiency of amino acid uptake into muscle tissue and neurotransmitter pools declines, blunting the full regenerative effects. In older adults or individuals experiencing muscle atrophy or neurological fatigue, strategic protein intake becomes even more critical as their physiological systems are slower to respond and less efficient at initiating repair unless prompted by nutrient signaling at the optimal time. Leucine-rich foods trigger muscle protein synthesis by activating a critical cellular pathway known as mTOR, mechanistic target of rapamycin, which functions as a central regulator of cell growth, repair, and anabolic signaling. Leucine, one of the three branched-chain amino acids BKS, is unique in its ability to directly initiate this process even in the absence of other amino acids or hormonal inputs. When leucine is consumed, particularly in whole food sources like eggs, dairy, lean meats, legumes, and certain protein supplements, it acts as a molecular switch, telling the body that sufficient resources are available to build and repair muscle tissue. This is especially crucial following physicalization or strength training, when muscle fibers experience microtears and inflammation that require targeted repair through protein synthesis. The role of leucine extends beyond muscle cells. It also has a profound impact on neuromuscular efficiency by ensuring that skeletal muscle fibers are not only rebuilt but also more responsive to future motor neuron stimulation. As people age, the body's sensitivity to dietary protein diminishes, a phenomenon known as anabolic resistance, and leucine becomes even more vital to overcoming this threshold. Higher doses of leucine are often necessary in older adults or individuals recovering from illness to sufficiently stimulate muscle protein synthesis, as their mTOR signaling is less responsive than in younger, healthier populations. Additionally, leucine has been shown to influence insulin signaling and glucose uptake, both of which support recovery and growth by supplying muscles with the energy needed to rebuild. Its presence in the diet is also associated with increased retention of lean mass during weight loss or caloric restriction, making it a critical tool for preserving strength, mobility, and metabolic health across the lifespan. In the context of neurobiology, the amino acid profile of leucine-rich foods contributes to the replenishment of neurotransmitters like glutamate and GABA, further supporting cognitive recovery and mental sharpness during periods of physical adaptation or stress. Mind-muscle connection is biologically real and rooted in the neurophysiological processes that govern attention, motor control, and neuromuscular activation. When you focus your attention on a specific muscle during a movement, you're not just imagining the contraction, you're actively recruiting more motor units through increased cortical involvement, particularly in regions like the primary motor cortex and supplementary motor area. This directed focus elevates the excitability of the corticospinal pathways that communicate with the peripheral nerves responsible for muscle activation, resulting in more precise, efficient, and forceful contractions. Functional MRI studies have shown that athletes and experienced lifters demonstrate greater brain activity in areas related to proprioception and kinesthetic awareness when engaging in resistance training, suggesting that the brain learns to optimize movement by refining the feedback loop between intention and action. This internal focus can enhance muscle fiber recruitment beyond what is possible through unconscious movement alone, especially in isolation exercises where a specific muscle group is being targeted. In rehabilitation settings, engaging the mind-muscle connection is a critical tool in neuroplasticity, helping to restore motor control and build compensatory pathways after injury or neurological damage. Additionally, the connection is modulated by dopamine and acetylcholine, neurotransmitters that enhance attention and neuromuscular coordination, meaning that mental clarity, emotional state, and overall neural health can directly influence the quality of muscular engagement. Over time, repeated activation of this pathway leads to structural and functional changes in both the muscle tissue and the neural circuits involved, strengthening not only the precision of the mind-body interface. The quality of muscle contraction improves, the efficiency of movement patterns becomes more refined, and the body adapts more readily to training stress because the brain is fully participating in the process. This deep integration of cognitive focus and physical exertion reinforces the concept that training is not solely a mechanical act but a neurobiological event where consciousness, attention, and intention shape the outcome of every repetition. Circadian rhythms influence nutrient uptake by regulating the timing and efficiency of digestion, absorption, and cellular metabolism based on the body's internal 24-hour clock. These rhythms are governed by the suprachiasmatic nucleus SCN in the hypothalamus, which synchronizes peripheral clocks found in the liver, intestines, pancreas, and skeletal muscles, all of which play critical roles in processing and utilizing nutrients. Light exposure, particularly in the early morning, acts as the primary cuebird that sets this clock, priming the digestive system to become more responsive and efficient at specific times of the day. Enzymes involved in breaking down macronutrients fluctuate throughout the day, with higher enzymatic activity and insulin sensitivity typically occurring in the earlier hours. This means the body is biologically primed to digest, absorb, and metabolize protein, carbohydrates, and fats more effectively in the morning and early afternoon than at night. Meal timing that aligns with circadian rhythms has been shown to improve glucose control, muscle protein synthesis, and overall nutrient partitioning, directing nutrients more toward muscle growth and recovery and away from fat storage or inflammatory processes. The expression of genes involved in amino acid transport, mitochondrial energy production, and metabolic signaling follows a circadian pattern. So how do we, which means that identical meals can yield different physiological outcomes depending on the time they are consumed. Eating in synchrony with these rhythms enhances hormonal profiles, including levels of cortisol, testosterone, and growth hormone, all of which influence how nutrients are utilized for muscle repair and neural recovery. Disruption of circadian patterns through shift work, irregular meal timing, or late eating desynchronizes internal clocks, impairing nutrient sensing and leading to metabolic inflexibility, reduced insensitivity, and diminished anabolic response. This misalignment not only affects physical health, but also impacts brain function by disrupting neurochemical balance and reducing the brain's ability to regulate appetite, satiety, and energy homeostasis. Therefore, when nutrient intake is timed to coincide with the body's natural biological rhythms, it creates a state of metabolic harmony that amplifies the effects of food on cellular repair, cognitive performance, and muscular regeneration. Recovery begins in the brain because the central nervous system serves as the command center for interpreting stress, initiating repair, and coordinating the physiological responses necessary for healing and adaptation. When the body undergoes physical exertion, whether through resistance training, endurance activity, or even mental stress, it is the brain that first registers the load and begins the cascade of hormonal, neurological, and metabolic adjustments required to return the system to baseline. This neural response involves the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal HPA axis, which governs the release of cortisol and other stress-related hormones that influence inflammation, immune activity, and tissue repair. Simultaneously, the brain regulates the autonomic nervous system, toggling between sympathetic activation and parasympathetic recovery modes, with deep recovery requiring a dominant parasympathetic state characterized by rest, digestion, and cellular regeneration. Neurotransmitters like dopamine, serotonin, and GABA are intricately involved in this process, affecting everything from pain perception to motivation and emotional balance, all of which determine how effectively an individual recovers, both physically and psychologically. Sleep, often considered the most powerful recovery tool, is orchestrated entirely by the brain through circadian signaling and the cycling of non-REM and REM phases, during which growth hormone is released, neural pruning occurs, and memory consolidation takes place. Moreover, the perception of fatigue itself is often more a neurological construct than a purely muscular one, indicating that the sensation of recovery is deeply rooted in how the brain interprets internal signals. Nutrition, movement, and even breath work only become recovery tools when the brain is primed to receive and respond to them, meaning that mental state, stress management, and emotional regulation are not soft factors, but fundamental drivers of physical healing. The prefrontal cortex and insular cortex also play a role in the self-awareness of pain, effort, and progress, influencing motivation to rest or push further, and thereby shaping long-term adaptation. Chronic stress or overtraining without adequate neural recovery disrupts synaptic efficiency, reduces neuroplasticity, and impairs motor learning, leading to reduced performance, increased injury risk, and emotional burnout. Conversely, practices that enhance brain recovery, such as mindfulness, targeted supplementation, light exposure, and deliberate rest, potentiate the entire neuromuscular system, allowing muscles, hormones, and organs to repair and rebuild in a coordinated and intelligent manner that is ultimately governed by the brain's interpretation of safety, balance, and readiness.